Hello, and thank you for tuning in to D-ConneXion TV. I'm Donzale Powell with D-Connects LLC, and today we are going to have some ladies tell us about an organization that's geared towards women, and it's called Cable. I've got Lakita Strebling with Ronstad USA and Julia Baker with Paige Duke. If you all would both kind of introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having us. I'm Lakita Stribling. I'm Vice President of Sales and Customer Experience for Ronstadt, where I've been for 25 years. And I'm also currently the President and Board Chair for Nashville Cable.
Okay.
I'm Julia Baker. I have two partners, and we have a landscape architecture firm. This is our 30th year working together, a small business here in Nashville, but we have projects throughout the Southeast. And I am currently serving this year as the Vice President of Membership for Cable.
Oh, good, good. Both of you all sound like you definitely are vested in what you do. I love that. I love that tenure. So to get us started, if you could just tell us a little bit about Cable, maybe some of the mission or how it came about.
Well, imagine a time, and there was a time when women could not join organizations like Rotary and the Exchange Club or the Lions Club or any of those types of social and civic organizations.
Mhm.
And so in 1978, a group of ladies here in Nashville decided to create our own group. And in partnership with the YWCA, Nashville Cable was founded. And it's really an organization for the women to be able to network as well as make connections, be they for personal, professional development or career type relationships. And so 43 years later, we're still at work and connecting women to opportunities.
Wonderful. And as far as the organization itself, is there anything that just automatically stands out to you? And either one could answer that says, this is why I joined cable. And then has anything changed to make you say, this is why I have stayed in cable? And how long have you ladies been in cable?
I can speak to that. I joined cable because I wanted an opportunity more for professional development than networking.
Mhm.
And I thought, what better way to do that than to be around a lot of the C-suite, professional women in Nashville and really kind of just learn from their mentorship and their example. The way our meetings were formatted before COVID, we had a really good opportunity to network at our lunch events. They were monthly. You could share what you did for a living, learn what other people did. And I thought that was really valuable. Why I've stayed in cable is that I think we have done a remarkable job during COVID pivoting to a virtual format and providing really rich content for our members and guests to visit us. And we've also even expanded our content. We now have before work events, we have lunch events, and after work events. So in a way, the silver lining for us is we were able to expand our audience and our message.
Right. So that virtual world kind of has worked out, so to speak. And at least in the meantime,
In the
until we
meantime,
can
right.
kind of, make sure that everyone is safe. I know that's a high priority for everyone. So I will just say for myself, and I actually am on the board as well, just serving as the kind of networking and events chair. And one of the things I've been a part of cable, I want to say I think 3 years. And initially I went because I wanted to kind of meet new people. I always like networking. I like the knowing who people are, what they do, kind of using that as a resource. And one of the reasons that I remained in cable this time has been similar to like you said. So initially it was more the luncheons. So being able to attend those, and really what kept me was at every single one of them, it was like I either made a connection or found out about a resource. It was something that I felt like was worth my time to leave my hectic job, drive and come to an event, park, get out, get registered. It was something that was worth it every time. And so that made me say, you know what? Even though I'm busy, I'm going. And it was hard sometimes with everything going on. It was hard sometimes to be able to say I'm going regardless. I have to, I'll have all this work when I get back, but I'm going to make that time. But every time it was something worth it. So I appreciate your comments about that. So you kind of talked a little bit about already the kind of during this pandemic, of course, we've had some changes going on, and we've kind of had to do some adjustments, so, kind of to the operations of how things typically would happen. So let's talk a little bit more about how we've kind of made those changes and pivoted. You talked about some of the more virtual, of course, as far as events are concerned, and more content and some of the programming that's going on. So, what would you consider some of the largest challenges, I guess, that we've experienced over this, let's just say year, and it could even be um, pre-pandemic, so it could be other challenges that are going on. And what were some of the wins that we've kind of had here recently?
Go
I'll
ahead.
take the first stab
Yeah.
at that, I suppose.
Okay.
I think the biggest challenge is really keeping your membership engaged in a
Mhm.
virtual format
Right.
or virtual setting because by the end of Friday, every week, most of us are zoomed out at that
Mhm.
point. But we also seize the opportunity to really expand our reach by really maximizing the opportunities that come with being in that virtual space where we've been able to reach out much broader than we would in our normally monthly luncheons. We use social media to promote our events, and we have uh, engaged more people to follow our pages. And a lot of our events this year have been where you can come and check out cable prior to joining. So we
Mhm.
do stream some of those events so that people who may not otherwise have had an opportunity can get an opportunity to see what cable is about. And
Right.
your story of how you were able to find connections or resources or something that was beneficial to you, then cable was doing what it's supposed to do. And I think being in this virtual space, we had to really stop and look at what we were doing and all of our programming. And it gave us an opportunity to have to recreate and reimagine how
Mhm.
we continue to deliver exceptional programming for our members and keeping them engaged and gaining new members. And hopefully, Julia will tell you about some amazing things we've accomplished in terms of growing membership, even in this virtual space.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say that was one of the challenges. As Lakita said, when this organization started, it was the only one of its kind. Well, naturally, all these years later, there's a lot of competition with other organizations that can fulfill professional development or networking opportunities for women. So, uh, the pandemic and COVID really happened at a pivotal part for cable where we were trying to retain members amongst all the noise of different organizations. And I think by pivoting so quickly with rich content and making it available to people to join without any cost, we have actually been able to increase our membership in the past year,
Mhm.
which is interesting because they're paying, we don't have the lunch expenses, but they believe in the organization enough and the content of our programs has been beneficial enough that they feel the value is there to join the organization. And hopefully, by the end of this year, if we're back to in person meetings safely, we will have a stronger and larger membership than when we went into the virtual world. So I think the content, the program content, and like to your point, I also feel like I never go to a cable program without leaving with just one idea, one resource, one way to improve my
Yeah.
professional performance at my office and my company, relationally with my employees, or your own personal. We've had some programs really geared towards personal enhancement and improvement, how to get healthier, how to manage your money. And I think one thing cable does well is view the professional woman not just as a working woman, but like as a total woman who needs good
Right.
health and good mental resources. And, outside of our work life, we have a life. And I think cable has been able to introduce content to speak to those other facets of our life.
I will say another thing that I've noticed. There are a lot of different industries, women that cover many different areas,
Mhm.
and I actually like that. So I do appreciate, of course, being able to meet other professionals that do, networking, consulting, or things like that that are similar to what I do. But I also like hearing about others. I like to know, like I said, I like to know what's going on because you never know. Literally, I'm one of those people that if I might find out about something 6 months ago, but then I meet someone else, they're just earnestly talking about their needs, and I'm able to connect them to
Mhm.
somebody that has nothing to do with what I do, but
Mhm.
because I was able to learn about it and I'm like, I know somebody that you could have a conversation with, or here's the website that you need. Anything like that that can really help people to be able to move forward. Because I know that's happened for me before, and you're thankful. You're just like, thank you, because I didn't know where to go or who to talk to,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So I really love that about cable. Now, I want to hear more about a little bit more about your programming. So, if you could explain some of the topics that sometimes the speakers would have spoke about in some of those luncheons that you used to have, or even in the virtual world, some of the topics that we're having come up now that kind of stood out to you most. And again, just reference either what the topic was or some of the key points or things that kind of stood out to you.
Well, this year, just before we started this particular cable year, which started July 1st,
Mhm.
ends June 30th, we did a member survey because we really wanted to know what type of programming would you like to see. And one of our goals was to be more intentional and deliberate about delivering programming, no matter where a lady is or man. There are a few male members,
Right.
wherever that person is in their career. And so we have some really heavy topics, we have some light topics, we have some fun things. And so we've really tried to have a great options
Mhm.
for our
Mhm.
members because we realize that not everybody's interested in the same thing. I think our holiday celebration, where we had a mixologist and a chef to come in and give us some ideas of holiday recipes and food we could do, I think was really fun for a lot of people. Marcus Whitney came on and talked about entrepreneurship. As a result of our survey, we found out 50% of the respondents own their own business. And so we
Mm.
wanted to make sure this year we had a track of programming for entrepreneurs. We had a couple things on diversity and inclusion and the glass ceiling. Demetria Kaladimos was very popular
Mhm.
in talking about, her career and how that progressed and what she's doing now. Um, and then in a few weeks, we'll have the Master Blender. I think that's what her title is, with
Mhm.
Uncle Nearest. His grandniece, I think, is coming to speak to us. So we have just really tried to be creative with our programming this year because it's got to be in this virtual setting, because
Mhm.
every time a person gets a Zoom invite, you have to choose, do I want to or do I not?
Mm-hmm.
And we want them to always choose to come and attend our programming.
Yeah, I like that kind of thinking outside the box and coming up almost kind of brainstorming and being willing to kind of try things and let people see how well it's received. I like that. So now Nashville Cable is larger than Nashville, correct? Is, is it
They
just Nashville, or how does that
Well,
work?
we have Nashville, and then we have an affiliate of
Okay.
Nashville Cable, which
Mhm.
is Rutherford
Rutherford.
Cable.
Okay. Okay.
And I think they opened and started their own chapter about 10 years ago. And so there are a few people who are members of both.
Mhm.
And I think it's great to have the option because one may be more convenient than the other.
Right.
And I think we have future plans of maybe starting other chapters in the MSA area.
Okay, okay, okay. And as far as cable goes, has that been something that when you're looking towards vision for over the next year or a couple years, is there anything that you kind of have in your head that you're like, I think cable could get to here? We would be able to make this type of impact. Anything like that? Any thoughts?
I think one of the things we also try and do is have a civic partnership with other organizations in town where the cable membership can contribute that way, either financially, through service,
Mm,
habitat houses, and things like that. And so, one of I think our goals is to expand beyond ourself, where cable is not only enhancing our members personally, but where they are also using their service, their intellect and their energy to benefit other not for profits or organizations throughout town. We are kind of bigger than just Nashville. I wanted to speak to that in our membership.
right.
We're really Davidson County. There are
Okay.
we have members from throughout Davidson County that are in attendance at our meetings and our members. But I think, and also to Lakita's point, we've actually been talking about how do we, down the road 3, 5 years, have other cable affiliates that we're kind of like the mother organization. But as areas grow and there's a greater population in a Clarksville or in a Mount Juliet area, it may be more convenient. Like you said, the hassle of driving downtown for lunch, that may be something that people don't want to always do. So if we could have our brand in other locations, I think that would be, benefit the women in those areas, and they could probably participate more.
Right. Well, and also I think I like how you all put the topics out, and even when we pre-pandemic, when we were actually going to locations, it's like people are able to self-select. So let's say I'm more in Rutherford County, and I can determine, oh yes, I'm willing to drive to Davison because I want to do X, Y, or Z, but it might be something going on in Murfreesboro, and I'm like, I want to go out there today because they happen to be talking about, this or that. So it's really, I like the available options, that if someone either was at one and could still go, and even if they're not a member, typically people can pay as a non-member to be able to attend events, so they would still be able to go. The membership just helps with a lot of the free programming that is provided and things like that. But I like that you all have a lot of options out there. So I want to hear a little bit more about you all individually. So now, as business women, I would like to hear more about your roles that you play within your own organizations, and please share with us a little bit about your day-to-day work, the benefits that you've had during your career, and if any of that has impacted, if cable has impacted any of that.
You want me to go?
Sure.
As I said, I have two partners, and we have a small, we have 9 employees, landscape architecture firm. This is our 30th year of business, which is pretty impressive for a small firm. And we only do residential. So we're not a necessary business, if you will. We're more of a luxury business, but we've been able to sustain a really strong client base through word of mouth and personal referrals. We've actually only had a website probably about the last 10 or 15 years. Prior to that, it was always people had been in a space we created, and they wanted that same feeling at their home. My role is, I like to say, I am the non-creative in the creative world, which you have to have a person like me to kind of keep all the creatives working. And I have two, my partners, I'll say they sprinkle the fairy dust. And then I come right behind and tell you how much the fairy dust is going to cost and how we're going to sign a contract. And I do a lot of our employee relations, all the hiring, all of the benefits, contracts, billing, all of the things that creative people cringe at. That's what I do during the day.
Yes, I love that. Like I said earlier, I definitely love the tenure and the fact that you were kind of going off of referrals only for so long. That to me is definitely speaks to the quality of work that you all do.
Well, and to the pandemic world, we have been busier in 2020 than we've ever been. And it's because people are home. And so they're now realizing, maybe I don't need to go to Florida every summer. Maybe we just need to enhance our own home environment. And our Instagram has almost tripled in followers. And I think it's because people are finding a respite from everything else by looking at beautiful imagery. And that's how we market our projects, or through photographs. And so our Instagram, I think, provides a respite for people.
I love that. And for you?
Well, I'm with a company called Randstad, and we are based out of Amsterdam internationally, but our corporate in the U.S. is in Atlanta, and we're the largest staffing company in the world. And I'm responsible for 12 offices from West Tennessee to Kentucky down to Southern Middle Tennessee. And so on a daily basis, I'm responsible for about 400 customers. And my teams have about 1,500 people working on any given day. So, just when you think you've seen it all, you realize you haven't. Always learn something new, but there's no greater calling I see as to help someone, get the dream job, or to, find that job where there's self-sustaining and family sustaining type careers for them.
Yeah, that definitely makes a difference. Now, give me just a little bit of insight on. So you have the responsibility of having to cover that area. On top of that, you are board chair for this organization. So just tell me, how do you manage that? How do you manage not only your day-to-day work, you've got this organization that you're also leading, and some of those stresses, I'm sure, like you said, if something pops up, sometimes you got to jump
Yes,
in and handle
that's
it. I
right.
can only imagine. So just tell me a little bit, because as women, I think sometimes we do a lot, and so I'm just wondering, how do you cope and how do you manage doing that?
That's a good question. And I wasn't as stressed until I reflected on all that you were saying. But yes, so work, I've got cable, I'm married, I got 3 sons, I'm working on a doctorate, and I serve
Woo!
on a number of other boards. So I remember my former CEO, we were having a conversation. And a lot of times for women, we often talk about work life balance.
Right.
And I love her response. She said, "There's no such thing." She said, "I like to call it work life harmony." And that really
Mm.
is a good description because I think it's important to find out where your passions are, even those passions you won't get paid for. And that way you find a way to get it done in the midst of everything else.
Mhm.
Because I mean, successful people are busy people. And so it really is about every day having to set priorities. And like for me on the weekends, I don't commit to much because that's time with my family
Mhm.
because I am gone so much or so busy during the week. So yeah, that's I think just making sure that whatever you are involved in, that it means something to you personally,
Yes.
and you can somehow find that harmony along with all the other competing priorities that you have going on.
Yeah. So your why, making sure that keep that in the forefront, and then that makes you want to go ahead and get to it
Or it
during the
makes
week.
you get up when you want to sit down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Thank you for that. So I've heard about an amazing success story that I truly think speaks to the impact that cable can have, or the potential, um, I guess, benefits that someone that's kind of teetering, like, should I join this, is this something that's worth it, can really take to heart. So if you all could kind of share the story. I believe her name is Rachel. If you could kind of give me some highlights on what happened to Rachel, with Rachel, what is going on with Rachel.
Rachel came to a cable meeting, and at that networking, what we talked about at the beginning, sitting around a table,
Mhm.
she sat next to a lady named Liz Allen Faye. A lot of people in Nashville know Liz
Yes, I
Allen,
know it very well.
and they introduced themselves to each other. Rachel ended up going to work for Liz Allen Faye,
Mhm.
and I think this year or next year it will be final. Rachel has bought Liz Allen Faye's business from her, and it is now her business. So she worked with her for many, many years. She was able to mentor her and make that transition. So she went from being a cable visitor, guest, to finding the path to her own business that she now runs and will own.
Right. So unlocking doors is what it sounds
Yeah.
like, just being in the room sometimes.
Well, and what's even more interesting about that from a networking perspective, which is also
Mhm.
what cable's about, Rachel and I serve on in a different organization together as well, doing some work around the quality of public education system here
Mm,
in Metro Nashville. And so, you know, you're only a person or two removed, and cable has
So
been
true.
so beneficial in helping to make connections and helping to make introductions. And so, for no other reason, I mean, whether it's business or personal, it's just a great place where women empower women. We celebrate each other. We're all there to learn and grow from one another. And it's just a fantastic environment.
I really like it because I am a Nashville native, so I've been here and I find benefit. But then just think about how many people are moving here from other places. What better way to kind of have a single place to kind of help you get plugged in? Like I
Mhm.
said, even if it's not necessarily directly in your industry, but just getting a feel. What's the culture here? How do people act? Is really being able to connect. So I love that. So talk to me a little bit about membership. Is this something, do people join online? What's the process for becoming a member? What does that even look like?
You go to nashvillecable.org.
Okay.
You click on the red bar at the top that
Mhm.
says "Why Join," and it will outline the 4 different levels of membership. The baseline membership is $250 a year, and then when we meet in person, you would pay for the lunches as you would attend for the lunches. They were $40. That could be totally different moving forward, but it's $250 to join. And then there are other levels of membership. If you want to be a sponsor, we acknowledge our sponsors on our virtual programs just like we used to on our in-person programs, and those are all outlined there. If you don't want to join electronically through our website, there also is an address, a post office box you can mail a check to join. We will take your money and your membership however we can, since that's my goal is to get everyone to join cable. And to your point earlier, I was thinking, I think the 2 years when I first joined cable before we went virtual, I never went to a cable meeting that I did not meet someone who had just moved to Nashville and someone had invited them to a cable meeting as a way to get plugged in.
Yeah.
So I think join now so that when we have that opportunity for in-person networking again, you're all ready and good to go.
Right. Now, I love how I think now it's more popular for women to be in these leadership roles, for women to be connecting and just out there moving and shaking, doing what it is that they do. And so I think that cable is a good platform for them to kind of be able to come together. So just talk to me about, I would love to hear what are some of your traditional, even if it's now virtual, events or things that might be coming in the future that you just want to share. Say there's just someone sitting on the couch, and like I said, they're kind of debating what are some of the things that are potentially available or will be coming in the future that they might want to participate in.
Probably. Well, I know we have Power of Inclusion. That's an annual big event, and I think this year our keynote speaker will be Candace Story Lee, who's the athletic director at Vanderbilt, first female, and I think she's the first Black female in the SEC to be an athletic director. And so we're anxious and excited about hearing from her.
Is power of inclusion that's like diversity and
Yes,
inclusion, being inclusive of all types of
yes.
people? Okay, gotcha.
And so every year we highlight someone in that vein. And then the Athena Awards have been moved to June this year, but we're always excited. So far, we have about 30 participating organizations and nominees, and about 20 young professionals that will
Yes.
highlight that night. So we're excited about that, having to do that in a virtual space. Also, I don't know that all of us will have vaccines by then, so we just decided to make that virtual also. And we just recently had our Boardwalk of Fame where we acknowledge companies that have women. It's part of their board of directors, as well as we honored females who are serving on corporate boards, which is a little different than nonprofit boards for
Yes.
sure.
Mhm.
And so those are some of the big programs that we do every year to give some highlight to what women are doing in those spaces.
Anything else you'd like to share?
That was one of my favorite programs this year. The Boardwalk Hall of Fame, the women who spoke this year and who speak at that every year are so remarkable. I mean, you can glean so much from their journey. And the Athena Awards, I've been involved in various roles in that, but I've been a judge several years.
Wow.
And we also do young girls in high school that can apply to get a scholarship and a laptop. And the accomplishments of these young women and what they're bringing to the future is remarkable, in addition to the Athena nominees. And when you
Yes.
read their story, just story after story about remarkable women, the Athena Awards really is a way to highlight pretty amazing women. And that's
Right,
one
to
of my
kind of
favorite
a big
events.
recap. I love
Mhm.
that. And I want to thank you both for joining us today. I think this was some great information that I'm sure some women are be very interested in. And I'd like to thank you all for tuning in to D Connection TV. And we will see you next time.